You're listening to Flip Empire, the show committed to helping real estate entrepreneurs who want to build their empire without sacrificing their life. Your success and freedom starts now with your host, Alex Pardo.
This is the Flip Empire Show. So appreciate you tuning in to episode 621 here. If this is your first time joining, my name's Alex Pardo. I'm grateful and honored to be the host of this podcast for going on it's going to be the 6-year anniversary of the launch and the start of the Flip Empire Show, which was back June 6, 2016. If you would have told me, fast forward the clock 6 years and I would still be hosting this show, I would have thought you were nuts. I wouldn't believe you. Probably would have called you a few choice words. And it's just a testament to you. The show continues to grow. In fact, last month, we hit the most unique downloads ever had in almost 6 years. So I'm so grateful for the lives that are being impacted by this show. And it pushes me to keep going. And along those lines, I want to talk to you today about the difference between quitting and stopping. And there is a very distinct difference between the two. And I want to kind of shed some light and some examples. I just talked about the fact that one of the reasons I continue to host this podcast is because in many ways it's extremely fulfilling. When I read the ratings and reviews, or when people randomly reach out to me on a weekly basis, or they send me a screenshot of them listening to me at the gym or in the car, it's humbling that somebody would take the time to listen to me. Hopefully that doesn't come across as if I don't feel like I have anything worthy to say, or that I don't feel like I can contribute in any way, because that's not the case. I wouldn't be able to do this for 6 years consistently, twice every single week without fail for 6 years straight, if I didn't believe I had something to contribute, and that I believed in myself and what I had to share, the message. And I honestly believe that for me, the message is downloaded by God. Right. And that could turn some people off that are listening to the show. And that's okay. Right. So for you, it could be the universe or maybe whatever it is you believe in. Sometimes I hop on here and I'm not 100% sure what's on my heart to share with you at that moment. And believe it or not, there's sometimes where I come behind the mic and I'm not 100% sure what I want to share with you, but I speak from the heart and I let it flow and I let it come organically. And when I get feedback on those types of shows and it impacts people, it can't come from me. It's got to come from somewhere else. But I want to share with you just a few examples so we can start getting into the conversation I want to have with you today on this episode about quitting versus stopping. I talk about how long I've been doing this podcast, and several shows ago, a couple of months ago, I was thinking about reinventing the podcast, and I wasn't discounting any possibilities, or I wasn't removing anything off the table, from potentially turning the show over to a different host, to finding a part-time host, to co-hosting the show. I even had some people reach out to me about their interest in acquiring the show. And I had, some of those conversations. And, there was a part of me when I was having some of those conversations and me reinventing the show, I'm still in a discovery phase with toying with getting some hosts to come in, like the Takeover show with Chris Chico. Definitely recommend that you listen to that. I have another Takeover show coming up in the next 2 to 3 weeks that you just got to stay tuned for. And I'm not going to reveal who's going to be taking over the show. I know you're going to get so much out of that show, but I've been given this platform to share a message, and hopefully the messages that I share on this resonate with you. But, going back to these conversations about reinventing the show, there was a part of me that was like, am I quitting? And I honestly asked myself that question. And I ultimately came to the conclusion that regardless of what I decided to do with the Flip Empire Show and the direction that it was going to take, it certainly wasn't quitting. So let me just go ahead and pause here. And what I did was, right before this show, I actually Googled, just out of curiosity, and I just Googled difference between quitting and stopping. And there's a ton of links and resources that you guys can check out yourself. But at the very top of Google, by the way, 78 million results came up on this. But the very top one, quitting is an act of desperation, but stopping can be an act of preservation and an act that can lead to salvation. Salvaging what's valuable in that circumstance. Stopping is a choice to end the specific activity and admitting, quote unquote, this is not working. What I'm doing isn't helpful. So there's a very deliberate choice that you need to make. And the difference between quitting and stopping can be profound. Stopping is a very conscious choice that you're making. And if I was to randomly scroll down here and just pick any random link here, there's countless examples, and one of the examples that pops up is somebody who decides to quit smoking, right? They've actually made a conscious choice to stop smoking. Quitting is when you give up on something you really want. Stopping is when you're making an active conscious choice, right? So regardless of what happens with this podcast moving forward, it's an active decision. It's a choice I'm making. I'm not giving up on it. Just yesterday, my daughter, so every single night we put Ariana and Alessia to sleep. We read them a bedtime story. We don't always read them a bedtime story, but oftentimes we do. But we always, without fail, say a prayer with them. We kiss them, we hug them, we tuck them in. And then sometimes my oldest daughter is personality wise, I think she's a spitting image of me, and she's very outgoing and she can be very talkative. It just hit me that her father hosts a podcast and has been talking for 6+ years. And so sometimes I feel like she just goes on and on and on, and she's got a very just outgoing, colorful personality. So my little one, who I was tucking in, my wife, Natalie, was just getting her stuff ready for the next day. And part of that was her dance clothes. And my little one, Alessia, basically just went on to say how she didn't want to go to dance. And she had been kind of complaining the last few weeks about when it's dance time. And she looks at us with this face and she's like, I don't want to keep dancing. And my wife and I looked at each other, because it's been a part of their lives for the better part of a couple of years. And we never wanted to be those parents to force things on them. We want to encourage them to try different things and get involved in extracurricular activities, because I truly believe there's a lot of benefits that come from it. But we never wanted to force our children to do anything they don't want to do. My oldest daughter is dancing competitively, and she's got a private coach, and she does private classes every single week, and she feels like competes every single weekend. And so she's all into it. And we told Alessia, my little one, she's like, look, if you don't want to keep dancing, it's okay. You don't have to keep dancing. It's fine. And then my oldest kind of yells out from the top of the bunk bed, and she's like, Alessia, we're pardos. We don't quit. And there was a part of me that felt, kind of like there was a pride behind my oldest saying, hey, we're pardos. We don't quit. And then I quickly realized, and I shared with both of them, that Alessia isn't quitting dance. She's consciously making a choice that she doesn't want to. And if a 5-year-old can make that decision and can say, hey, I no longer want to do something, that's not quitting. I had to kind of share with both of them, particularly my oldest, that there's a very big difference between the two. And I'll be honest, I talk about how sometimes I come on the show and I'm not 100% sure what I want to share. And maybe part of that is because, 621 episodes, it's kind of hard to cover new topics and conversations that haven't already been had. At least sometimes that's how I feel, if I'm being honest with you. It hit me right as I was like prepping my microphone to hop on here, because I wanted to record a show for this week. And I said, I want to talk about quitting versus stopping, and how that might relate to your what's going on in your life as a real estate investor, as an entrepreneur, as a husband, mother, father, wife, all these different things. Are you actively making a decision to stop doing something that no longer serves you, that isn't aligned with your goals or vision? Or are you quitting? Are you giving up? I had a conversation with somebody who for years they've been telling me that they want to get into business for themselves and they have all these different side hustles, but they're not really focused. And yet they just got a big promotion. And deep down inside, I know that's not what they really want. And oftentimes a job or a salary is a bribe to give up and quit on your own dreams. And as I think about this particular person, they're choosing the comfort of the job and the salary. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that if you're listening to the show and you have a job, that you shouldn't have that job, because that may serve you at this season of your life that you're in right now. But I will tell you that there's, again, I think quitting is when you give up on something you truly want, whether it's a dream, a goal, whatever that might be. I think about my decision in 2020 to transition out of wholesaling after doing that successfully for 16 years. And there was about a 6-month gap where I took some time off, and I wasn't 100% sure, outside of Ascend and the podcast and some different real estate things I was doing, what I wanted to do from a business standpoint. And I knew it was right to get into storage for me. Some people may have thought that I quit on wholesaling or that I quit on real estate, but it was a very deliberate, active, conscious decision that I made that was well in the making for well over a year, believe it or not. So just this morning, another example I'll share with you, a really, really good friend of mine, somebody who, if I mention their name, you would know exactly who it is, who's been around for a long, long time, who's achieved success by most people's standards, if not all, was just kind of sharing with me how in his real estate business, he feels a bit burned out. And we started talking about some of the challenges and struggles that many of you, deal with as far as running an active wholesaling and or fix and flip operation. When you talk about the marketing and the lead gen and the lead conversion and the hiring and the training and the managing of the people, some of the common challenges that we all deal with, I've certainly dealt with. And, he was just kind of sharing with me some of the current challenges. And he's like, I don't know that I want to keep going and I want to keep doing this. Does this really fit with where I want to be long-term and the stage of life that I'm in right now? And I totally get it, and if he ultimately decides to go in a different direction, to transition, the word pivot was used a lot over the course of the last few years. If he decides to pivot, in my book, he's not quitting. He's choosing to go in a different direction. Now, if you and I were having a conversation and you said, it's been my lifelong dream to do X, but I've decided that I don't want to do that anymore because it's not worth the effort and the sacrifice or this or that, that might be considered quitting, because you still truly, truly do want that. So I wanted to just kind of share some raw, unfiltered thoughts on the difference between the two. And it hit me right before I started recording this, the conversation that I had with my two daughters and with my wife last night about quitting versus stopping. And if a 5-year-old can make the decision to stop, not quit, but to stop, then you certainly can as well. I want you to think about the different things that you're doing in your business right now. Maybe you're doing something that's not a revenue generating activity. Maybe you're doing something that you can outsource or get somebody, delegate to somebody for significantly less than what your time is worth. That is worth stopping. You might even say that's worth quitting on because your time is better spent elsewhere. So be very strategic about the idea and the concept of stopping versus quitting. One is negative, the other can also be negative, and then sometimes they both can be positive. But there's a fine line and there's a difference between the two. Back to my days as a teenager, I grew up at several years doing martial arts. And inside of our dojo, there was a big mural across the wall that said, "Winners never quit and quitters never win." And that quote always stuck with me. And I apply that to this day. But just understand there's a big difference between quitting something and stopping, deciding to stop something so that you can go in a different direction. Sometimes we need to stop and sharpen the axe and then pick it up and start swinging at that tree because it can come down a lot quicker than if you just get a dull axe and like a madman, you're just hacking away at that thing. Sometimes it makes sense to be strategic and intentional about stopping, sharpening the axe, or sometimes you got to slow down in order to speed up. So think about that as, you go on about your life as you continue to grow and build your business, hopefully impact and serve other people. So speaking of serving other people, ascendyoursuccess.com, just shameless plug for our mastermind. We're about 3 weeks out from just gathering together with all of our families at a 5-star all-inclusive resort in the Dominican Republic in Punta Cana. And just so pumped about that. If we're not connected on social media, most likely I'll be sharing on my stories and on my different platforms what's going on out there. If you want to have a conversation about ascendyoursuccess.com, or we're happy to connect with you if the time is right. So with that being said, I wish you nothing but the best. Wish you health and success. And go get it. Don't let fear get in the way. Don't let the naysayers or the haters stop you from doing the things you want to do. Continue pushing, continue plugging away. And if you're doing something that no longer serves you or that isn't aligned with the direction that you want to go in, stop doing that and go in a different direction. On the flip side, if there's something that you really truly want and you know that it's going to put you in a better position, it's going to put your family in a better position, don't ever quit. Don't ever quit. Keep pushing, keep going. If you need words of encouragement, continue to plug into this podcast. Reach out to me if you need to. Hopefully you got the right people in your inner circle, the right people around you. If not, that's another reason to look for the right communities, the right masterminds, the right networks of people that you can get around that can pour into you, walk alongside you, hold you accountable, inspire you, hopefully. And then sometimes just be an ear for you and listen to you, because entrepreneurship can sometimes be lonely. And so I appreciate you for listening. And that's all what I got for you on today's episode. Look forward to connecting on the next episode. Take care. Hope you enjoyed that episode. But before you go, I've had a lot of people recently reach out to me wanting to learn more about Ascend, wanting to understand how the mastermind component works, how the coaching relationship works. And so right now we're actually on a waiting list. But what I would encourage you to do is, if you think you're the right fit and you think you could benefit from being a part of our community, head over to ascendyoursuccess.com, watch the short video, and then just click the apply to join button below. And then we'll be in contact with you if and when a spot opens up. So really appreciate you listening to Flip Empire here, and I look forward to connecting with you on the next show. Take care.